So take me back. What year were you born?
I was born in 1927, but I'd like to tell the story of how the gospel came to Montana. My grandparents on my mother's side came out, homesteaded in Montana as soon as they had the railroad, the Great Northern Railroad went through Montana. They surveyed the land and made homesteads. And every so many, after they measured off a homestead, then they made one part of that area a school, so a place for a school. And the person that homesteaded there was the one that was supposed to take care of the school. They were supposed to, anyway. And my grandparents went out on the train, and when they got there, they bought the horses and the cows and the chickens and everything they needed, and went out on the prairie. And my grandparents homesteaded on the school lot. Property, yeah. Well, it wasn't property exactly. It was just designated for so they would have maybe they got a break on the price. I don't know. But anyway, they homesteaded on the school lot.
And then when did your mother and father get to that area?
Well, they were with my mother, and my mother was with them, of course. My mother was with them, and they had their brother. She had her brother, George Webb, and he homesteaded, several miles away. And then when after he got kind of established, their mother and their sister went out there and homesteaded for their brother, close to their brother, so he got their land, and more or less they got the profits off of it.
Where was your family coming from? Where were your grandparents?
They're from Michigan.
They were from Michigan.
Mm-hmm. And so because my grandfather died the year after they got here, and so my grandmother homesteaded mostly by herself and her three children. And of course her brother was there, but and helped her, but she still had to finance the thing herself.
Was that a hard life for them?
Oh, it was very hard, because there was no water. They said there was no water and there was no wood close by. So they had by the time I arrived there, they had built reservoirs around an area. So my grandmother also had a reservoir on her place. But because she had the school section, she would help to get the teacher for the school, and they would stay with my grandmother. And often they would contact somebody from the church. They were church members.
They were RLDS.
And they would contact someone from headquarters, and if they had a daughter, somebody that was a teacher, she could come out and teach and get her start as a
But didn't
teacher.
the residents get awfully crowded?
Well, I don't know how, I can't remember the area of a homestead, whether it was 640 acres or 320 or...
But I'm thinking about the house. It couldn't have been very big.
Oh, the house was, if I had a picture of it, you would believe what they had lived in,
Small?
It was small, and it was...
No running water.
No running water. And they burned, when they first went there, the buffalo dung was so thick that they burned that for fuel.
Buffalo dung.
It was dry.
So would you categorize, what were the name of your grandparents? Can you remember?
Oh, let's see, Norman and Margaret Seymour.
Norman and Margaret Seymour. So they were deeply religious. They believed in Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints.
Well, I don't know about my grandfather, but my grandmother did, and her brother did, and the brother that homesteaded with them, that came out with them, and he was the only one that could afford the Saints Herald. So he would buy the Saints Herald, and in those days it was just like tissue paper almost. It was just real thin and just full of printing. And I can see, my mother didn't have glasses and she couldn't see very good, but I could see her reading that, and she read it. She firmly believed everything it said. And so did, Anyway, they'd send a daughter out to teach the school, and then the daughter, one of their in the headquarters, that the grandpa or the father or a brother or somebody would come out and preach once in a while. So they'd come out and they were our ministers. And we were all so excited when they'd come. Nobody had enough chairs in their home so that everybody could sit. So they put boards between the chairs, and little kids would sit on the boards and listen to the sermon. And I can remember how wonderful it was and how good it felt to sit there for an hour and listen to him.
You didn't get bored?
Well, if I did, I just remember the good part of the Holy Spirit being there, and we all just enjoyed it so much. Anyway, and then they discovered gas on my grandmother's place, natural gas, and so they put out a pipe from all the neighbors, and so everybody had gas. The gas lines were just on top of the ground, and went to all the neighbors, so they had gas too. The school had gas lights and gas heat, so they weren't out there very long with the buffalo dung and wood and stuff. It was a real blessing to them.
So your dad had a wooden rig, and it burned to the ground, but you said he was a very wealthy man. Why didn't he just get a new one?
We couldn't afford it. They cost a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. So what happened from there? Did the family become poor and desolate?
Oh, we became poor. We still work. He had a job. We worked for the oil company, so he had a job, and we lived. And they, like I say, when they discovered oil, they in the gas, natural gas, and that they would run it through pipes and put it in a barrel. Have you ever been around the oil field?
A little bit.
Yeah, they would put it in tanks then, and they pump it out and sell it.
And what did your mom do all day?
Took care of us kids.
Mm-hmm. Well, how would you describe you as a 5, 6, 7, 8, 10-year-old woman, girl? What were you like as a kid?
I liked to study. I liked to play in the outside. I liked to be with friends.
And then when was it? I mean, do I picture you saying your prayers every day before you went to bed?
Oh, yes. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take.
Was your mother, did she spend time with you and your siblings going over Bible stories?
Oh, yes. They had the church had, where we went to church, not very often, was in Great Falls, Montana, and it was about 120 miles away. And to be baptized, we had to take lessons just like the kids do now.
Do you remember your baptism day?
Yes. I was baptized in the Missouri River in Great Falls, Montana.
Do you remember how cold the water was?
Not so much. I remember what a beautiful day it was. Me and my brother, they waited till I was 8, but I was so small for my age, nobody believed I was 8, but I was. And I could remember Eliason, a man by the name of Eliason baptized me. And the other man's name was, let me think. Maybe I'll think of it before I go home.
And then you become a teenager. You're 13, you're
Okay.
14, you're 15.
Well,
what is Natalee like then?
I'm in Bozeman, Montana, and I'm in high school, and they thought I was really smart because when I graduated from 8th grade, I went to a school that they couldn't afford a teacher for 9 months, so they had a teacher for 8 months there, and she left us all the information on how to pass the exam, all the questions they'd ask, and I studied like fury while my brother played off with his guns and things. Anyway, I studied like fury, so I got 100 in arithmetic. So when I took my exam for graduation from 8th grade, I got 100 in arithmetic and 98 in something else and 100 in something, a reading or something. Anyway, so that it gave me the highest grade in the county when I took my test. They thought I was really smart. Well, I just studied hard.
So you like school too?
Oh yes, I loved school.
Would you say you were well behaved, or were you kind of a rebel?
Well, I was well behaved. Yeah.
And when did you notice boys? When did you start noticing boys?
Oh, probably 2. My brother always had boys around, so I knew a lot of boys.
Do you remember your first boyfriend? Would have been in high school, maybe. So, were you involved in any clubs in high school?
Well, I was involved in a cheer club. The cheer club. They had girls that were especially. They had cheerleaders, and then they had a cheer club, and I belonged to cheer club.
So you were never a cheerleader on the side of a football game?
I was when I was a senior in high school.
You were a cheerleader?
I was a cheerleader. My daughters were cheerleaders too.
So, did you go to college? Was that possible?
Oh, my mother tried it. They moved to another town, and it was a nice town for them. And I stayed in Bozeman to go to college in the fall. But my money was stolen. I put my money away I thought in a safe place, so I could go to college in the fall. But my money was stolen, and so my mother, I didn't have any money at all. So they sent me enough money to go where they were. And
what do you mean? Did you go to community college?
No, they didn't have community college. Then we moved to Cut Bank, Montana.
Cut Bank.
Cut Bank. And my dad was working for a mining company. And World War II hit, and they closed the mining company. But then my dad became a dirt mover, kind of excavator, and did that.
So you can't go to college. So what do?
I was working for an abstract company. I lived at home with my folks, my mother, and
doing exactly what every day? What do you do when you work at an abstract company?
Oh, okay. An abstract. In those days, everything was typed, and so I would go. I worked with an abstract company, and I would go up to the courthouse every day and get the things that had been executed and copied and recorded at the clerk and recorder's office. I'd have to hand type everything that came into the clerk and recorder for the abstract company, so they'd have the record in their office. So that was, I'd taken typing in high school, and I was pretty good at it. So
Were you still attending church at this time?
we didn't. They didn't have. We were away from church.
A couple of years?
Yeah. Well, during war, they didn't have youth camp or anything like that. I never did go to youth camp. I never did go to youth camp or anything. And
So then,
and there weren't any boys when we had the war. They took all the boys as soon as Cut Bank was part. The county was part Indian reservation, Blackfeet Indian reservation, and they would send out. They had quotas for everybody, every county of how many people they had to produce to go to war, and they took all the 17 years old as soon as they graduated from high school. They took all the boys in our end of the county because the Indian boys were so were so unhealthy with all this diseases and malnutrition that they had to get their quota from half the county. And they took all the boys my age except for about 3. And they were either the only son or they were needed to stay for the farm. So then the boys all came home. And they were sick of war, and my husband had been on duty in an LCI, landing craft. What did I stand?
well, how did
Infantry.
you meet your husband? What was his name and how did you meet him? I never knew him.
No, he lived next door. He came home and he lived next door to me.
How old was he when you fell in love? How old were you when you fell in love?
Oh, probably 18. We got married when we were 20. The boys were tired of, they wanted something. You know, they were tired of being
Shot at.
shot at. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't shot at, but he served. And
Would you say he was mentally not quite right because having been in the war?
I would. He was
Anxious?
He was anxious, and he never liked crowds. He never really liked a crowd. He talked about the war a lot. Talked about it. The purpose of his ship was to go in and strafe the beach so that they could have a landing. So they were the first ones at the
Did
beach.
he go to Normandy?
No, he was in South Pacific.
Okay.
They took most of the people to South Pacific from our area.
Was it a long courtship, you and him?
Quite a long, it was several months.
But how did you know he was the one for you? What was his first name?
Bob?
How did you know?
Well, I don't know what it was exactly, but we got along famously. We agreed on our goals, and he wanted to he wanted to build something, you know, and like a lot of boys kind of drifted after the service, but he was he wanted to be a farmer. His folks had farmland and things. And so I liked his purpose.
Was he handsome?
Oh, I thought he was. And we had a lot of fun he was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun in my life. The fun went out of my life when he passed away. Because he was a lot of fun.
Do you remember when he proposed to you?
No, I don't. I think we just kind of proposed to each other.
Yeah.
We were just ready to be together all the time.
What was he doing religiously?
Nothing. He wasn't. He had a lot of questions. He was had a lot of questions religiously all his life. He never joined the church. He always had too many arguments against it. But he helped a lot. He was a wonderful youth leader. And we did a lot of youth work. He had the Boy Scouts, and he was youth camp. Went with maybe youth camp. The kids had so much fun because he had so many things he liked to do. He brought rope, and he'd make rope. The kids would make their own rope, and make their own knots, and he had a good, and the kids liked him.
Was he a romantic?
I thought he was.
So you're married, you start having children. Did you have to work outside the home?
No, we lived too far out of town.
And where was this now?
This was in Montana, in Glacier County, and we were about 20 miles from town. When we went out there, it was just a trail, 20 miles of a trail, and we gradually got a house, and then we built a house, and we had good luck and we had bad luck, but he started a Boy Scout troop from a little school the kids went to. We drove them every day to school, to a little little school that they had close to the oil camp. And then he started a Boy Scout troop, and he rode horseback all over the reservation when he was a kid, just he and his friends, And he thought, well, they needed some money to outfit the Boy Scout troop, so he went to the Museum of the Plains Indians, which was at Browning, Montana, and we got affiliated with the head of the museum, and he and Bob were figuring out a route through the reservation that they could take people on, just a trip around, just to raise some money for the troop. And Lewis and Clark had been up in that part of Montana, try to find the whatever it was Jefferson wanted them to do. They were looking for the boundaries of the Louisiana Purchase. And Lewis and Clark Lewis had come up there after their trip, after the Lewis and Clark's trip to the
expedition.
But, yeah, the expedition went to the Pacific Ocean. They thought they would catch a bus, catch a ship, because the ships were going up around and up to Portland and around in Oregon to trade with the Indians. And they thought they'd catch a ship home, They thought they'd take an expedition up there, and then take a ship back around the ship never came. So they had to build a fort and stay the winter there, and they came back through the same area kind of that they'd been the first trip, with their first trip up there to and then they got to thinking, well, maybe in Montana they had missed a shortcut across the mountains on their expedition over to Pacific Ocean. So Lewis and, let's see, 3 other men took a trip up into our area to see if they could find a better path across the mountains. And they got up there, but they didn't find one. But they were in our area.
So as a young housewife with children, and you had how many children?
4.
What was that like for you? I mean, besides the daily chores, did you get involved in any groups or organizations?
Oh, I belonged to everything. Anything that needed help, I belonged to everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, I helped Bob with the typing and everything for the trip he was on. And he decided that the museum decided that maybe he could find there where they camped. And they had had an altercation with the Indians while they were there and killed 2 and camped with the Indians. And he thought maybe they could find that place, you know, for camping. So they did. They found it. Bob and he took Lewis's account of the incident and put it on an aeronautical map and flew the area that he had on there and found the exact top place. And it's right here. So he got involved in that, and it became a national registered, it's a National Historic Site. And I helped type things for him. And
So what kind of a mother were you, do you think?
oh, I was a peculiar mother.
Why do you say that?
Well, I kind of thought the kids should learn to take care of themselves.
What are you saying?
I'm saying I didn't pamper the kids too much, but I saw that they went to school every day. I didn't care what kind of grades they got, but if they went to school every day and did their homework every night, they got the best grades that they could get, and that was enough for me.
Were you a disciplinarian? Doesn't sound like it.
Oh, I was. So was my husband. We were. We had agreed on how to raise the kids.
Which was firm?
Well, I guess it was firm. I know we expected them at home at a certain time. They always did. We kept them so busy with Boy Scouts and things at school. They wrestled at school. And,
Did you get them to church every Sunday? Was that important?
well, yes, it was. And my husband was Presbyterian, so we didn't go to. We were going to church the kids were going to church. The kids and I were going to church, but Bob wasn't. Especially, he had too many questions about it all.
And he never got over those questions.
Not really, no. He didn't. I think he just didn't. He just didn't like to be around. I think he just liked it quiet. After his experience on the ship.
Would you talk about, as you're going through, you get married, you start having a family, where were you spiritually? Was God important to you? Did he play or she play a role in your life?
Oh, always. From the time I was 3, sitting in that board, listening to a preacher, I was very interested in spiritual things, and I had a lot of experiences with him. I felt spiritually led by God, and of course we started a little mission in our town. My mother, my grandmother, my aunt, and her children, and my children, and then I was taking my kids to Sunday school at the Presbyterian Church. A family came in and started talking about putting in this mission, building a mission there. And
would that have been an RLDS mission?
yes, And what should I do? You know, what should I do? The kids were going to Sunday school. We were getting along fine as a family and everything. And then they wanted to start a mission, and I thought, it was a real struggle for me to decide what to do. But then I felt like God led me to stay with the church.
And to help.
And to help, yeah.
What about through your life, any testimonies of times or a time when you were down on your luck and God interceded in your life and you knew that God was real?
I think that was one of them, was when they started the mission.
And did your kids take quickly to going to the mission for church?
Yeah, they did. They were little. The baby was probably 2.
Were you a good cook?
I was.
Is there a meal that you prepare that when you still get together with your children, they would say, "Oh, Mom, when you cooked this, it was wonderful."
The hamburger,
Not hamburger casserole.
meatloaf and baked potatoes and green beans and salad.
Do you think you were a good wife?
I think I was. I think I was a good wife.
Mm-hmm. And now your children. You happy with the way they turned out?
Oh, I sure am.
Tell me a little bit about each one of them. Just a little bit.
Well, Lori. Remember Lori?
Passed away.
Passed away.
I went to school with her.
Uh-huh. Oh, did you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Lori at Graceland. Lori and Peggy went to Graceland, and Pete went to Graceland.
Mm-hmm.
And
does it mean a lot to you that both Pete and Peggy are very involved in Community of Christ?
David, it's David.
Who was Pete?
Pete, he's interested. He'll always be a church member.
But Peggy and David are very involved.
Oh yes, and he's involved in a lot of churches too, and he has had a lot of experiences. I don't know why, but they were very active in the church.
You don't know why. I mean, what I'm trying to get at is, would Peggy and David say, we credit Mom and Dad for our service to Community of Christ now?
Yeah, I do. Uh-huh.
And does that make you feel good?
Oh, sure. Well, I do. I mean, I do, because I felt like I made a choice a long time ago, and they made a choice too. The kids are all religious. My kids are all religious.
Natalie, what do you think happens to us when we die?
I don't really know. I'm not sure what happens to us when we die. I don't know if there's a dimension or what, but another dimension that we go into or what. I really don't know. But I kind of think that God doesn't throw anything away. Everything that He makes is good, and everything He does is good, and He doesn't throw anything away.
Hobbies? Did you ever have hobbies?
Well, I quilted. I quilted with the mites. We had a great
Were you
time.
as good as Janine Blakesley?
Probably not, but I had fun anyway.
What else did you do for fun?
We camped.
You did?
We camped.
Where did you go camping around here?
We didn't camp around here. We went to Montana to camp.
Is that inside of a tent?
Oh, sometimes.
Or did you have a camper?
We always had a camper with the kids, but the most fun we've ever had has always been in a tent. I don't know, there's something about that. But I do like electricity. So I had my fry pan and my toaster and my electricity, even in a tent.
You like ice cream?
Yes.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Vanilla. And I'll put all kinds of things on it if I want.
What other indulgences do you allow from time to time?
Oh, anything I want. I don't. I just eat food. Whatever is put before me, I eat.
Well, one of the questions we always like to ask older folk, especially someone who's 97, what is your secret to longevity?
Honestly, I don't know. I get up in the morning and I look around and I think, well, it looks like a good day to die. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I've gone through a lot of different things.
Do you ever get depressed?
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. I'm more of a people person than I am. I'm more social than I am.
Well, how is life here for you at Crown Colony now?
Well, I think it's great. Crown Colony has just the amount of people you need to, you know, and I feel very safe. And we have wonderful people here that all take care of each other. I think the people here are really nice.
Will you be buried at Rose Hill?
Yes, I have my stone out there.
Next to Bob?
Yeah. My stone is Bob, with Bob. His stone with Bob.
If Bob were here, in this room, alive and talking to us, and I said to him, how would you describe Natalee as a wife? What would he say?
Oh, I think he'd say I was a good one.
Let's go back to the loss of Laurie. Very painful time in your life. Talk about that.
Well, it's still really painful for all of us. The kids, her kids. She was a very, very unique person. She was a planner. She knew she liked to have fun. We all just miss her terribly. Her John does, you know John too, probably. John misses her.
How did you as a mother get through that?
What is there else to do?
Right.
I didn't. None of us are really through with it. They'll always be her kids or anybody.
At your memorial service, and I don't mean to be morbid here, but it's probably going to happen in the next 10 years. What's the best thing people could say about you? What would give you great joy to hear people say about you?
I would hope they'd say I was nice to everybody. I would hope that they could say that. I don't know if that would be true, but that's what I would hope for. I think that's paramount. It's just.
And then, this is the last question. What kind of a pep talk would you give members of our church? Those who are attending church right now at the Lamoni Big Church and we're struggling with turnout and attendance numbers, etc., the future, what would you say to us?
I'd say keep on. I'd say remember this is a God thing. He's given us the greatest gift that he could give us. He's given us a chance for the truth, to search the truth, and to be true to each other. He's given us a chance to take care of each other, and don't give up, because you'll never find anything any better than this. You've experienced this yourself with God, and his gift to us he forgives us, and he wants us to just love each other enough to give up some of our own ideas sometimes and not try to be patient. And I never thought patience was a virtue, and I'm not sure it is now, but I say be patient. God loves us, and he gives us every chance to show us how much he loves us if we to love him as much as he loves us.
97, and we all go, oh my gosh. But you just said, what? I get to be 97. Is that how you feel about it?
Oh, is that what? I didn't say that. Well, I guess so. I guess so. I try to be glad to be 97.